Hello and a warm welcome to the latest episode of the Scottish Roadscast, a podcast from the Scottish Roads Archives that delves into the history of Scotland's roads, bridges and motorways. I'm John Hassel and I'm joined by my regular co-host Stuart Baird. Good to see you, Stuart. How have you been?
Wonderful, John. Brilliant. Glad to be back with you on another podcast. Always good to be recording with you.
Likewise. And, very special because we have resident expert and guru Duncan McKnight with us to talk to us about yet another road. How are you, Duncan?
My expert name is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I'm all right. I'm not too bad. How's things with you?
Yeah, no, really good. I always like doing these. It's good, and people really enjoy them. So, no, it's good to have you together, gents. Now, Duncan, before you go off to the races straight away with what you're going to talk about, Stuart, you've got a feature coming up and from the archive, which we have returned. Can you tell us a little bit about that before we get into the main thing?
I have chosen a Strathclyde Regional Council document that was given to us recently. It's a report on 21 years of Strathclyde roads, which I think people will find very, very interesting. So a wee bit more on that later. Just as a reminder, if you want to look at the document and follow along as we're discussing it, you'll get it on our website, scottishrroadsarchive.org/roadscast, and you will find the document on there, which you can view as a PDF. But more on that in a bit.
Good. I already have a question, but I'm going to leave it to the end. Okay, Duncan. Thanks for coming along and talking to us again. What have you spent time researching, and what are you going to tell everyone about today?
Well, we're going to be jumping all the way up to the Highlands again, up to the rural world, and we're going to be discussing a fantastic road called the A87. Okay,
Is this a first? Have we ever spoke about the A87?
We have not. We have not spoken about the A87. No, it's a fantastic road. I recommend anyone to give it a drive along. John and I had a trip all the way along it to see the Skye Bridge, didn't we? On a lovely, nice sunny day.
It was lovely. I really enjoed that.
For people like me who are very much focused on the central belt and don't really care about things north of Perth, where does that road start and end?
I'll go jump into the overview. So this is the Invergarry and Uig trunk road. Now, Invergarry is along the shore of Loch Ness, along the A82. We spoke about the A82 year before last. We had a 2-part podcast and we spoke all about that. And we mentioned the start of the A87. But here we are finally going along the A87. Very excited. It's a road I've not been too fussed about, but I've being working along there and driving along it, I've picked up the interest, and when I started digging into it, I went, there's actually quite a lot going on. And we got a whole heap of drawings, and a lot of the 87 schemes were part of this big bundle of drawings we got. So this is where my interest kind of went from.
Yeah, I remember when you found those drawings, you were very excited.
It was brilliant.
For a few days. We
it was fantastic.
Try and tie you down.
I know, but
Duncan's always excited.
You'll hear why. Shall we crack on?
Yeah, let's go for it, man.
So it's 99 miles long. It's the main road link to the Isle of Skye, and it incorporates Skye Bridge, which we will not speak about on this podcast. We will leave that for its own podcast in October on its 30th birthday.
Talk about it a tiny bit. More information to come. And with the Skye Bridge, it was extended across Skye to Uig in 1995. And this is a little fun fact here. This is one of the roads in Scotland that is trunk from end to end. So there's no non-trunk bits or like council bits. It's one of these full trunk roads. I think the A75 is one of these. The A76, the A78, I think, is another one of these. And the 83... Is it the 83?
Is there still non-trunk sections of the 83 beyond Campbelltown? I don't know. Maybe.
I think it's trunk.
All the way now?
Oh, I don't know.
I think we know better than to question the McKnight on such matters.
When we do the 83 podcast, we will get that firmed out. But yeah, this is one of the roads that's trunk from end to end. So bear look after it all the way along. So a bit of historical background. The main link to the Isle of Skye, as we mentioned, the historical route was constructed by Thomas Telford as part of the Commission for Highland Roads and Bridges around the 1810s. Quite a familiar story, but he built this road and several others. It was formerly a narrow single-track road by the 1930s and 40s, and it did see a wee bit of improvement. But from the 1950s all the way to 1972, it was fully rebuilt to single carriageway
standards between Invergarry and Kyle of Lochalsh, and it was upgraded to S2 full single carriageway on Skye as well. Lots of sections of new road built, and it was actually one of these ones that was impacted by the hydro dams being built in the 1950s in Scotland, which we will go into. And it was expanded.
Stuart and I went through many pictures of hydro dam things in Historic Environment Scotland.
We could have a whole archive on this. Yeah. And it was extended across Skye Bridge to Uig in 1995. So it starts on the 82 at Invergarry, and the first 5 miles, quite straightforward, is Invergarry to Duncan Bridge, or the Tom Down Junction. Main design was Inverness County Council, and it was constructed by William Tawes, completed around December 1965. So this is the first wee bit that's still fairly original to the original route. It still follows the original line. But beyond here, there's a wee bit of background to go to. So historically, the next several miles were altered by the Scottish Hydro projects of the 1950s, and this was a massive amount of civil engineering that took place. There's a very good book I can recommend called The Dam Builders: Power to the Glens by James Miller, and it goes into detail of all of the schemes. Like if we tried to write all of the Scottish roads history in one book, it would look something like that. It's a fantastic book. I recommend it. As part of this work, 78 dams and 54 power stations were built to provide electricity to every home in Scotland. That was the drive for this. And this was a lot of work. Lots of road realignments as well. The Hydro Board built 102 miles of public road and 175 miles of access roads as part of the realignments, as diversions for if we're building a dam that's going to flood the valley, we're going to have to build a subsequent road to replace the one that's been flooded.
Okay. I can see how it's come about then. So it's been a road in many ways to facilitate the construction of dams, but also to offset the loss of other roads because of dams.
Basically, yeah. So I mentioned the Duncan Bridge, or the Tom Down Junction. So if you follow the Tom Down Road all the way along to the little village of Tom Down, the historical road turns north there, and it runs across the hills to Loch Loyne. Now, Loch Loyne was also dammed and expanded, which flooded the original road. And then it ran all the way over the hills, round the back of Loch Cluny to the Cluny Inn, and it rejoined the historical route there.
Okay.
Now, when the dam projects were picking up a bit of pace, they did have a look at this and go, well, we're going to have to flood the road. So one of the things we could do is build a big viaduct over the loch and retain the road and just build a viaduct over the bit that we flooded. But that was rejected, and the option was taken to build a new road from the Duncan Bridge Junction, or the Tom Down Junction, over the hills to a place called Buntloyne, which is to the east of the Cluny Dam, where the A87 and the A87 merged together. So that section across the hills, that was all brand new. That was all brand new constructed. Let me get caught up with my notes here. So from the Tom Down Junction to Morriston Bridge, which is the east of the Cluny Dam, main design for this section of road was Sir William Halcrow and partners. I think they were also involved with the dam projects, and this was constructed by Farrens Limited, opened February 1961. So the old road was abandoned and it was flooded under Loch Loyne, but it still exists as a walking track, but it is severed in the middle. Very rural, this section. It is a very, very rural section. Lots of forestry plantations, but there's really not much going on. There is a couple of landmarks along here. There's the Glengarry viewpoint. So Glengarry is a funny one. It's one of these lochs that if you look at it from a particular angle from the lay-by, it looks like a map of Scotland. Have you heard about this? Yeah. You can't see it very much because there's been a lot of forestry plantation and it's obscured the view. So you can stop in the lay-by and look at the trees.
You were trying to point it out to me.
Yeah.
You were trying to, but I was trying to drive. And you were like, oh, look at the map of Scotland, but there wasn't really much to part. And you're right, because I did suggest stopping. You're like, well, you can't see much because of the trees.
Can't see much. There's a big clump of trees. I think I did do some emailing when I was back in the office, and I think the trees are going to be harvested in the next few months. So hopefully the view will re-emerge.
So what's the name of the loch again where you can see the map of Scotland?
Loch Garry.
Loch Garry, right.
Loch Garry, look along, yeah. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to see Loch Garry soon. So this then drops all the way down to the A887 and A87 junction at Buntloyne. And the A87 takes over and it turns left and runs up to the Cluny Dam. So this section from Buntloyn, another bit of history here, from Buntloyn all the way to Cluny Inn was originally numbered as the A887. And all they did was when they built the new A87, they just pulled it back and then extended the 87 along the top of Loch Cluny. So it's a wee bit of confusion with the numbers there, but it's now the 87. But when the Cluny Dam was constructed, the original route that Telford built was, of course, flooded. So the hydro guys had to build a new road. So this is known as the Loch Cluny diversion. The main design of this section of road was Halcrone Partners again. And this was built by the International Development Company Limited, which really puzzles me. I still don't know much about who they are, but they built this section of the road. Opened the 1st of August 1955. But the issue with this is this was built as a single track improvement because all they needed to do was provide an alternative road. They didn't need to provide anything better because all they were improving was the original road. But in 1950s, we started to improve the 87. So obviously this bit was also widened to single carriageway. So following on from this, that we improved all of that again in the 1960s. So Ross and Cromarty County Council and Inverness County Council did each side of this. The boundary sort of in the middle of the loch. So Ross and Cromarty did west and Inverness did east. And both of these sections were built by William Tawes, completed May 1968. This is a fantastic bit of road. It's got lots of long sight lines, lots of stunning views as you're driving along. And when the water level is low down, you can see parts of the old road. The old wash house can be seen as well. Some of the old bridges. Yeah,
we went up there, Duncan. When was it? There was not much rainfall. It was drought, wasn't it?
May, I think May or June. Yeah,
and I can't remember, but I remember you saying about this. We were like, "Whoa, that looks low." And you say, when it gets very low, you can actually see the ghostly remnants of these places.
Mm-hmm. There is the bridge, the remains of the old stone bridge at the western end that you can see. I think we saw that on the days we were going along. But yeah, it's just one of these interesting little lost things under the loch. I think the A835 to Ullapool has also been diverted due to dam construction. I think there's probably a couple of others across Scotland, but those are the two sort of trunk road ones that I'm aware of. There might be some more. So this thing carries on, and all sections west of here were all designed in-house by Ross and Cromarty County Council, and these guys were appointed in 1958 by the Scottish Development Department to rebuild the road as the main road to Skye from single track to single carriageway, and rebuild the road they did. So the first section is Easnan Arm Diversion. So this was constructed by Kings & Co. Limited, completed April 1966. So again, this was very much widening the existing road. It does drop in quality a little bit from the Loch Cluny section. It clearly is just widening the original road. So there's a couple of tight bends, a couple of sharp gradients and things, but it's still pretty good.
Well, that's what I was going to ask in this section. Was it ever offline in this particular bit?
Little bits were offline, but the majority of it was online. I mean, I know that the standards at the time were, I think, 50 miles an hour design speed, maybe 60 miles an hour. So it wasn't a big high standard sweeping bends type of road. It was a bit lower standard than that because that's what we were building to. So it is a bit bendy, but it is still quite good.
What I noticed from our drive, and I know this section that you're talking about because I remember what we were discussing at the time, and I think you were pointing out some laybys that you see, which were actually they're the remnants of the old road, the old road that were sort of retained as laybys.
Retained as laybys, yeah. If they could, they would keep them as laybys. Otherwise, it was remove and landscape, which has happened on many other trunk roads. There is an interesting little feature along here. The River Shiel, I think, runs along here. And the new road was actually constructed over a section of the riverbed. And the river was diverted into a hill by blasting through the hill and creating a little tunnel for the diversion of the river.
Like a rock culvert.
Like a big raw rock blasting straight through the mountain. It's an interesting little feature that when I found out, I went, that's quite good. So I do have some pictures of that.
Okay. That's smart.
And it does pass the Battle of Glen Shiel This took place on the 10th of June 1719 in the Scottish Highlands. We lay by in little one of these marker boards along there for further information along there.
Okay, something interesting to stop and look at in the way of Skye then.
So just along here, the next contract merges in at the bridge in the middle called the Easnan Arm Bridge. This is quite distinct because you can see the old Telford Bridge sitting just behind it. As you go along, it sits on a big loop of the old road, and you can see the new road going straight across. This was built by R.J. MacLeod, well-known Highland and Northern contractor, completed 1967. Yeah, they also built the next section, which is the Shiel section, which runs to Invergarry Lodge just before Clackenduich. Again, this was completed around May 1968. Again, this bit's still quite bendy, quite twisty, lots of sharp corners, but there are some stunning mountains high up above the road. It's a bit like Glencoe. It's really nice along there. And the Shield Bridge, just near the end of this section, was reconstructed in the 1990s by George Leslie Limited. I should say thanks to Graham Yule, who sent over a lot of information about the A87. So thank you to Graham for continuing to help us out. And this leads on to the next section, which is known as the Loch Duich Causeway. And this was the last section to open. This is quite a cool bit. And this
I was going to say this was cool.
This is the cool bit, yeah. This includes the Clackenduich Bridge, which includes a lovely plaque on the bridge. Bypassed a big loop of the old road as well, which took a longer loop in and out. Opened by Gordon Campbell MP on the 9th of June 1972, and it was built by William Briggs Construction. I believe they became Tarmac. I might be completely wrong there. I think they disappeared, or they were absorbed by Tarmac. I'm sure I've seen that in some of the social comments. I'm not too sure about that.
Okay.
But yeah, this was a big causeway that was constructed and a little bridge. So there was a huge amount of rock excavated for the south approaches as you go through the huge cutting. And this was all used for the causeway. 110,000 cubic yards of rock was used to build this little causeway.
At least they got it from nearby.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense if you're taking that large cutting out and then they made these causeways across. And I guess that's saved going all the way around the bay and Broadway, Yeah, okay.
I do know also that Crouch and Hogg were involved in investigations for this section about a bridge causeway hybrid, improving the old road. So they had a bit of involvement with that. This leads on to the Inverinit section. Now, this is the bit where it goes down to 40 miles an hour because it is quite close to properties. It is very much on-line improvement of the old road.
Yeah, a little bit urban.
A little bit urban, yeah. There's some nice crib walls alongside the road as well. Again, built by R.J. MacLeod, completed around June 1969. That was just widening the original road there. It then jumps offline again, and it follows a new line towards Dorney Bridge. The old road climbs up the hill as a very steep and very narrow and scary single-track road that I went along and went, oof, crikey Moses, this is quite something. So I recommend a wee drive along the old road, along the Carbray section. But this runs along Loch Duich. Opened on the 20th of June 1969, and it was built by Duncan Logan Limited, and has bypassed the steep section. And we've got some photographs of this, which are very nice. We have put some on social media. And a wee landmark along here, I need to mention it, is Eilean Castle. Quite famous if you're into James Bond. The World Is Not Enough. James Bond was there, and it was in Highlander as well.
In the opening scene of The World Is Not Enough.
Yeah, that's where MI5 hang out and James Bond hangs out. And that's also where Highlander was filmed as well. It's really nice along there.
What was the name of the castle? Was it Eilean Donnell?
Eilean Donan.
Eilean Donan. That's it. Okay.
Really nice. But we're
as
not
soon as
interested.
you see it, you'd know it.
It's really nice, yeah. We've got some nice photos, but we're not interested in the castle. We're interested in the bridge next to it called Dorney Bridge, obviously.
Obviously,
yeah. So the original bridge, there's a current bridge called Dorney Bridge. The old Dorney Bridge sat just up the river, and it was opened on the 30th of April 1940. It replaced an old ferry. There was never a road round the top and back down. There was never one there. It was just a ferry here. And this is quite an interesting bridge. It was quite a brutal concrete structure constructed by William Tawes, and it featured a lifting bascule section in the middle. You've probably seen a few photographs of this. I mean, thanks to Ronnie Land, we now have a photograph of it open, So we can confirm it was there and did open, but I think it was seldom used. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say I've not heard of that.
No, it was completely removed when the new bridge was built. Cleveland Bridge did supply steel for the lifting section in the middle, but being a concrete structure, it didn't have a lot of resilience. It was susceptible to chloride attack, and the narrow width obviously led to its replacement and demolition with the current Dorney Bridge that sits just down there. So that was opened on the 19th of April 1991 with main design by W.A. Fairhurst and Partners, built by Harbour and General Works Limited. And for construction of this, a temporary bridge was built alongside to facilitate the construction of the new bridge. So they didn't need to bring barges and things up. So it just made the construction much easier. And they had to go through a process of trying to make it look, it sits quite low down because obviously the castle's right next door. So they didn't want this big imposing structure. So it's quite a nice little bridge, that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fitting in with the landscape.
Fitting in with the landscape. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So last couple of sections on the mainland here is our delve to Bulmacara. So this is an online section of the road. A couple of offline sections, a couple of straight sections as well. Works by Duncan Logan again, who went bust while building this section. Completed around 1970. I know that they made an agreement where they completed the road projects they were constructing before they disappeared. So this was completed around 1970.
It's a shame. This does seem to happen to some contractors, doesn't it? Well, they've taken on jobs that might be a little bit too big, or something happens in the sort of the climate, and they, as you so descriptively put it, go insolvent.
Or dissolve, or the midges got to them probably. That's what happened there. That's what happened to Duncan Logan.
Actually, let's just talk about the midges for a second. I mean, you're building a road, all these different... No wonder there's so many different contractors and schemes. They're probably like, don't bid for any work up there. You get eaten alive, guys.
You get eaten alive. It's cold as well, boggy.
That's... I know you're not quite finished on your tour yet, but you think about it. So we went there on a nice day. You can imagine it's far away. It's remote.
Oh yeah,
trying to get all those materials, and
particularly back then,
workforce up there.
Yeah,
particularly back then, and things like that. It was a heck of an undertaking.
Yeah, even back then, yeah. So another little feature of this section. This is the junction to the A890, which goes over the Stromfrey section, which is a road we like in the archive. It's got a little underpass. Quite a nice little section. Baptized for design of that. Yes,
this is another one I don't think I've been on that road that goes up from there.
Oh dear!
It's not on the North Coast 500, is it? It's too far down.
It's a little detour, but it's not too far off. But
it's cool though.
It is cool. Yeah, it's very, very cool. Yeah, we've got some photographs of that being built as well. Just to mention that. Yeah. So last section is Bulmacara to Kyle of Lochalsh. Built by R.J. McLeod, opened early 1917. This was, again, brand new section of road following, I think, an old track that was there. The old road kind of goes round the back and goes into Kyle round the back way. That's another narrow single track section. And this ended at the ferry pier at Kyle of Lochalsh. It didn't. Today it heads towards the bridge, but back then it looped down to the ferry terminal, and that was the end of the A87 there. It just ended at the ferry, and you got the ferry over the river there. And it was extended in 1995 on new approaches to Skye Bridge and over the Skye Bridge all the way up to the top of Uig as like the highway through Uig. Basically, it became trunk. So again, the next little section that we'll just briefly mention is the Skye Bridge and the Carrick Viaduct. Opened 1995, extended the 87. We are going to be speaking about this in detail later on. Quite a nice bridge, yeah.
It's the Carrick... You mentioned the Carrick Viaduct.
Carrick Viaduct, yeah.
Was that part of the Skye Bridge?
It was part of the work. So the Skye Bridge is the big tall arch, and then linking the little island to the mainland is the low level bridge. So that's the Carrick Viaduct.
There's a name for said island. I remember you telling me.
Elanban Island. That's the stepping stone used to get to Skye that they use for the bridge construction.
Yeah. Okay.
So welcome to Skye, everyone. And this is the first time. No, this isn't the first time we've been in Ireland. We've been to Orkney, but this is another island we've been to on the Roads podcast. So welcome to Skye.
Do you know some people say? I hope I'm not going to get a klaxon at me here from my co-host, but some people say ever since that went in, it's no longer an island.
What? No, it's still an island.
That's not how we define islands.
That's not how that
exactly.
works.
No, Britain was no longer an island because of the Channel Tunnel.
Guys, I'm not agreeing with this. I'm just saying this is something I've heard. Someone's on expert on Facebook.
Next. Expert on Facebook. Next.
Expert on Facebook. So, back to the interesting stuff that people want to know about. So, road numbering. So, because it wasn't the A87, it was formerly known as the A850 from the other side of the ferry at Killacan to the Borv junction north of Portree. And then from Borv to Uig, it was numbered as the A856. And it was renumbered in 1995 with the opening of the Skye Bridge. And there was a couple of finishing off improvements to this as well prior to the bridge opening. So the first section, you then enter Skye, and the first bit is Killacan to Broadford. So there was 2 phases of improvement along here, nice sweeping bends along here. First stage of this, we don't have a lot of detail on this, but the first stage was done by R.J. MacLeod in 1982-ish. And the second bit, pretty sure was done by Morrison's in 1980-88. There was an EU grant given to the scheme there. So I think it was Morrison's did that. And there has been a nice bit of tree clearance along the road, and you can now see far ahead. So they've chopped all the trees back, so it's got good sight lines along there.
The last time I think I was on this section, Duncan, it was pre-Skye Bridge. I was very young. So I'm really just having to visualize everything you're saying. I've got Google Maps up here, but your description is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting now because I've not been along here in a long time.
Not been to Skye. Stuart, have you been to Skye recently?
Many times, Duncan. Many times.
I know.
As someone with a real interest in roads in this country, I feel it's essential that we get out and see them before we talk about them.
And
someone with a real interest in being midge-bitten.
Mr. Hassel letting the side down yet again, Duncan.
Yeah.
Well, fuel isn't cheap and it's not sustainable to go driving around everywhere as we've spoken.
That suddenly matters.
Hey, everyone else uses that excuse. I'm greenwashing my lack of visiting.
Oh my goodness.
Dear me.
Dear.
Right. Okay. So anyway, we're on Skye.
We're on Skye. So the next section from Broadford to Stromallis was constructed in 2 stages again. First bit was by William Tawes in 1973. Second section was D. McFarlane and Sons 1978. So we're getting a bit older now. So the road does feel a bit older. And then another quick section to Loch Einort was I.C. Hunter Limited in 1967 that improved the road along there. It's not, we're on Skye, it's very exciting, but the road is not that exciting. There's not a lot of big structures or huge earthworks or massive engineering to build this. It was very simply widening parts of the road along here. However,
you could say though, Duncan, the scenery is the
scenery.
Special.
The scenery is lovely. As you start heading into Skye, it's really, really nice. And a lovely clear day, and you can see miles across. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Hewlands and all the hills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also, I've heard.
Yeah. If you behave, John, you're going to be muted in a moment.
I'll mute myself.
Yes. Anyway, so if you're eagle-eyed, you can actually spot sections of the old Telford bridges and some of the old road lying alongside. I did say the road's not exciting. However, the next section from Loch Einort to Sconser Lodge over the Droom na Cleach diversion is a very exciting section of road. There's a heck of a lot of work that built this section. This was a 4-mile brand new section of road over the Droom na Cleach, which means hump of the cloak in English. 4 miles long, bypassing the old road built in the 1920s. Main design by Inverness County Council, built by J. Baxter and Sons, and this was completed July 1964. So this is quite an early improvement. So this is a section that really, there's a lot of long bends going through very deep rock cuttings as you climb all the way up and all the way back down. This is a great bit. This is cool.
I was going to say, that does sound quite interesting.
This is really cool, yeah. It's said the first section of new road built since the Second World War on Skye. It's got excellent sightlines. I overtook 6 vehicles in one go because of the sightlines were so good.
Rookie numbers though. My record was
very
14.
early. Nothing was coming the other way, and I went, I can't be sitting behind camper vans.
If it's a safely done overtake, then that's fair enough. Yeah, that's
sightlines are very, very good. Again, considerable amount of rock blasting along here. Some new culverts. 10 tons of explosives were used for the blasting, and all they did was blast a whole heap of rock out and then bulldoze it down the hill to fill up some of the wee gullies over the watercourses. So there's lots of big cuttings along there. So again, it drops back down, and we've got the last couple of sections from Sconsor Lodge to Slaglachen. This is this bridge that's seen in a lot of advertisement for Skye. It's got the old bridge sitting just behind it, built in 1964. We don't know who built this unfortunately, but it is a nice little bridge. Now, however, the next section from Slaglachen to Borv is a bit of a mystery. I don't know many schemes along here. There's a lot of narrow bridges along here, so it's been seldom improved. These are one of these bridges that if you're not paying attention, you may hit them. And I've been to a couple of them, a couple of the repairs in my work. And it's not pleasant. And there you go. So it then heads up through, it runs through Portree, the 87, and runs back out into the rural lands. The A850 turns off at the Borv Junction, and we rejoin what was known as, hold on, where's that gone? The A856, last couple of sections to Uig. Constructed 3 sections. First section to Kingsborough, built by William Briggs and Sons, completed 1970. Kingsborough to Earlish, completed May 1971. And the final section to Uig was built by IC Hunter Limited, and this completed in May 1968. This is a nice little bit because it's quite well aligned, and you can keep up a good speed along here. It's a really nice bit, and you've got some nice views out to the brutal rocky cliffs of Skye off to the west, and then it drops back down the hill, and it ends as it did pre the Skye Bridge at the harbour at Uig this time. And onward journey here is the ferry to the Isle of Harris, which leads on to Stornoway. But that's where the 87 comes to an end. It pretty much makes its way as I've said, the highway through Skye. Some of the more exciting roads are off on the Highland Council network, but this is the 87. But it's pretty good. When I went along it, I remember going along it on a really nice sunny day. It was very quiet. It was quite early in the morning, and I really liked it. I thought it was great, and I went and did some touristy stuff, and it was a nice wee day out. So I recommend, if you've not done the 87 or not been to Skye, I recommend giving it a tour. But that's the end of the 87.
It's a good road, Duncan. It's a very interesting road. On Skye in particular, there is some interesting features. I've got some good photos actually that we should probably share when we do our route page on the website.
It's on the list. Yeah, that's coming soon. Yeah.
But it's an interesting road all in. You know, if you drive it end to end, you know, even the stretch just up to Kyle of Loch Alsh is interesting enough. But once you're over the bridge and you're on the island, it does get really interesting at points. Lots to see, lots of stopping points, lots of laybys and things as well.
Lots of laybys, lots of stopping points, lots of things to see as well on Skye. I think I went to the Fairy Glen as well, and went to a couple of other places. Lots and lots of good places. It can get busy though. That's the nature of it.
I was just about to make that point. Is again, you guys have far demonstrably more experience in this route than I do, but I suppose that the enjoyment of this in somewhat is probably related to how busy it can be at times. You don't expect to get around in a hurry. No. You know, so take your time, have plenty of time.
It can be,
especially in the summer. It can be incredibly busy. The 87 is trunk, going to be well maintained to that reason. I know that sometimes you go around some of these roads and these places. I found that with some even parts of the North Coast 500 when I had done it, they were a bit potholy as soon as you got off the trunk roads and stuff. But no, and stunning scenery. By the way, this podcast is not sponsored by some tourism board, but it does mean you've sold this trip to me now.
Go to Skye, see the Skye Bridge, see all these cool things.
Do you know? There's some other things I'd like to say though. That I learned. I learned loads. I learned loads on this, and it's really good. But I've been saying, what did you say? Uig. I've been saying Uig.
Uig.
I've just said it wrong for years, and I'm like, have I say that wrong?
Goodness.
But the thing, it goes, maybe Duncan's not got, you've not got 100% of the pronunciation right for all the names, but done for looking into how to say it.
Yeah.
And the sheer number, how many different schemes are there along the edge of this route that you know about?
There's quite a few. I mean, it was really interesting to me to see that from end to end, it's pretty much been upgraded all in pretty much one big project by the county council. And back then, you're thinking, wow,
a rolling program, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you look at things like the A9 now. This was similar in vein to that. Lots of big contracts making this nice, big, long route. Okay, it's not a big national, big super highway, but it's a wee bit bendy. But it's still a lot of work that took place.
Very important for tourism.
Yeah, something we like in the archives as well. Lots of contractors and designs and opening dates and things. So.
Well, you've done good to ferret all that information out.
Yes,
Yes. It's super, super interesting.
Just like to add at the end, if anyone has any further information, construction photographs, opening booklets, if they exist for the A87, please get in touch. It would be lovely to see them and get them shared. But that's me on the A87. I recommend it. Give it a go.
Thank you, Duncan. That was spellbinding. Wonderful. Before we finish on the A7, Stuart, have you got any closing thoughts on it? I think I've said my piece.
No, just that you better get up there and get it driven as soon as possible.
I will be waiting, and I will be the passenger princess, Stuart, and you can drive me up there. How about that?
Yeah. A couple of times I did it on Skye. It was off peak. It was February one of the times, May another time. Yeah. A bit quieter. You can see a bit more.
It's pretty good.
Yourself.
It's pretty good off peak.
I just seem to miss it in recent years. I know my wife's actually been there more recently than I have, which wants to go back. So anyway. If I've got anything from this podcast, it's I need to go to Skye, like I need to go to Orkney, apparently. So, right, listen, thanks again, Duncan. Stuart, you've got something to tell us that you mentioned at the beginning. Yeah. Yes. So over to you, mate, if you want to tell us about our From the Archive.
Our From the Archive feature this month is an item that has only recently been acquired by the Scottish Roads Archive, donated to us by someone who worked for Strathclyde Regional Council back in the day, particularly Strathclyde Region Roads Department, which was a huge, huge department. This book was published in March 1996, which was 1 month prior to the dissolution of Strathclyde Regional Council. The regions existed in Scotland from 1975 to 1996. At that time, I think there were 9 regions and 73 districts across Scotland when we had 2-tier local authorities. And the regions were obviously responsible for the big ticket items, and they were highway or roads authority for the region, dealing with roads and roads maintenance and winter maintenance and gritting and all those sorts of things that we take for granted. And Strathclyde Regional Council was Scotland's largest local authority by far. It was one of the biggest authorities in Europe, and it had a budget, I believe, larger than the country of Luxembourg at one point, just based on the sheer scale of it. And the region, it extended from Oban in the north all the way down to Girvan, beyond Girvan in the south, all the way up to Harthill in the east, all the way up to the Islands, Argyll and Bute in the west. It was massive. But it worked because it had a huge urban population, and it had a large rural area, and it came together nicely to, provide good services for everyone. But there was a decision made in the mid-1990s that the regions were too big and too remote, and that was why we ended up with the 32 unitary authorities that we've had ever since. Anyway, back to this document. So it was published in 1996, co-authored, incidentally, by a chap called Graham Lawson, who has given us lots of information to the archive over the years. He worked for Strathclyde Region, worked for Edinburgh Corporation, way beyond that, working on their plans for inner ring roads and things back in the 60s and 70s. So that is a person that's known to us. But this document's fascinating because what it does is it provides an overview of some of the highlights of the region's roads department over its 21 years of existence. And it talks through things like lighting, the urban motorway traffic control centre, the old SITRAC system, winter maintenance. They were at the forefront of developing new techniques in winter maintenance that are still in use today across parts of Scotland. They had a close connection with parts of Europe. There was town centre action plans, cycling, parking. They owned their own car parks. They maintained their own car parks. There was environmental considerations, big projects, commercial services. They actually tendered for works. They had their own companies that would, go out and win work.
They had their own design standard manuals that were adopted into the DMRB.
That's right. Yep. And design and construction was a big part of it as well. So this document, it's 20 pages long. It covers some of the main highlights. It's well worth a read. So if I give you just a few snippets from this, just like Duncan did, last month when he read from his booklet. In 1995, Strathclyde Roads employed over 4,000 people and had a turnover of £400 million. In 1995.
That's a massive budget, massive amount of money.
You think of the economies of scale that you can have when your turnover is 400 million. You can have your own plant, you have your own quarries, your own material, your own labour force. You do it all yourself.
Control it all.
Exactly. And that's where the regions work so well. They were responsible for a network of over 13,000 kilometres of public roads, ranging from some of the busiest motorways in Europe to single-track routes in isolated areas. It's unbelievable. They have 4,800 kilometres of coastline, which was more than the whole of France, it says here. Huge area.
Yeah, it would be because of all the islands and other things.
Because, Strathclyde roads were responsible for coastal protection. They had 20 harbours and piers, as well as 2 airstrips in Argyll as well. There's one at Connell, I think, that was run by Strathclyde Region. The Roads Department also acted as agents for the Scottish Office for Trunk Roads and Motorways at that time. And it's actually the only local authority in Scotland at that time with motorway functions. And that's because in those days, the Glasgow urban motorway system was managed and maintained by Strathclyde Regional Council. It only became a trunk road or a trunk motorway when the regions ceased to exist in 1996. So they had such interesting functions. 4,000 vehicles, 285 gritters, 7 snowblowers, 460 buses. Huge operation, absolutely massive. 304,000 lighting columns, 100,000 bollards, 40,000 parking spaces, and 4,500 structures. Absolutely massive.
So funny. So I work in sort of asset management side of things, and you're rounding off all these figures at me, and I'm like, wow, we only have 1,300 kilometres of trunk road. We only have 10,000 lighting columns, and but then you've got to remember, they're every street. They're every high street. They're every country road. They're not just the big green lines or blue lines on maps. Yep. It was massive, Stuart.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely massive. So this booklet goes into a lot of interesting detail on that. I really recommend it. Not only that, but it also talks about the traffic and transportation plans that the regions had to pull together. Andrew Davis, who was obviously a keen supporter of our work, is sadly no longer with us, John. He was a key architect in devising the TPP system for Scotland and for Strathclyde, and was then rolled out across the whole country. Rolling 5-year programmes of capital works for transport improvement.
Yeah, they had the clout to do it because, as you say, with the turnover and the money you have of the ability to do it, when you compare to local authorities now, it's very difficult for them to do capital works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, very interesting document. I won't go into too much detail about it here. You can certainly.
I did enjoy your figures that you were rattling off, though. And that maybe gives our listeners an idea of what it's like for some of the local authorities. They have more assets than trunk road authorities because they have far more kilometres of roads. Because, like I said, it's every street. It's a huge operation looking after all this.
Exactly. I mean, it includes interesting snippets of information and wee funny facts as well. Several years ago, special attention was given to winter maintenance on the road leading to the Mull of Kintyre Lighthouse. The wife of one of the keepers was pregnant. Just things like that, just wee facts and things like that just make it all the more interesting. So, it's great. Actually, there's some information on some of the big projects as well. We have the M8, we've got St James Interchange, East Kilbride Expressway, Johnston Howard Bypass, Irvine Newtown, A77, A71, lots of roads, A8 down towards Greenock as well. There's a few things.
What's a good way to describe this book? Was it like an almanac of all the achievements? Was this almost like they knew the region was coming to an end and they made like a sort of love letter to it, say, look, this is what we got, this is what we've done.
They're just highlighting the fact, and let's be honest, the regions were abolished against the best advice of many. For a variety of reasons. But they were very successful in doing what they did, and they did it well, and they did it efficiently for the most part.
You only have to look at photos sometimes to admit, I know things were fresh and new. We've always said that, it looks good.
So they're really just, the roads guys have obviously decided, we've done a lot of good work. Let's talk about some of it. The talk here, at Langbank, where the old Compaq factory near Bishopton used to be. I think that's the HP Hewlett-Packard factory now, isn't it?
Hewlett-Packard,
the presence of this factory was secured by the speedy response of Strathclyde Roads Department, which upgraded the B815 access road at very short notice in 1987. Just things like that.
Put the roundabout in. Yeah.
Just gives that.
Just to live along there.
A wee bit of context to some of the things that they did. They were
you've said the local authorities have all changed now, but Stuart, the number of assets and the miles of coastline, these things haven't changed, No. And there's still these requirements for it, but it's been broken up into something.
That's right. It's funny because in the post-war era, immediately after the war, through the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, there was a huge push for regionalisation, particularly from a planning context, because it was felt that planning of big things was best handled on a regional basis rather than a local basis, because you could think strategically and you didn't have all these authorities competing against one another for
you
the
could
same
pull and
sorts of
share
things.
resources.
Exactly. You had all that as well.
And the sum of greater parts, as they say.
Well, that's it. And then we came through the 70s and the 80s, and some felt, particularly through the Thatcher era, that some of these big authorities were just too big, and they didn't necessarily have the same political colours as the government of the day. And that was not just the case in Strathclyde. There was the Yorkshire authorities down south as well that were considered to be too big and broken up. The Greater London Council, another example.
Yeah, I mean, we're not political podcast, but we can couch this as history to say that perhaps at the time the Thatcherism, where they didn't like big government and big local government, they didn't like it. Exactly. Particularly. So, there was an agenda, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. Yeah. Absolutely right. So, lots of facts and figures in there, well worth a read. Did you know that for a number of years after 1975, the Roads Department was also responsible for the Regional Council's window cleaning service? Because
I did not.
They were the only section that had ladders long enough to do it. So
mupes.
So well worth a read.
Fantastic. Thank you for that big dive into that. I think coupled with our 87, I've got so many takeaways from this. One, I need to visit Skye. Two, we need Strathclyde Regional Council or something like that back. And it's pronounced Uig. And that's all I've really got to say, to be honest with you. Stuart, I don't know if you've got any final messages.
No, not at all. Just a big thanks to the sponsors, Eastford Excavations and HBS Scotland, for ensuring this podcast continues. Duncan, we spoke last month about some of your episodes coming up. Coming down the line, John, I believe you've got your M9 podcast.
Yes, indeed. Still in the works.
Yep. We have the Skye Bridge 30th anniversary coming up in October. We have a journey along the A8 from Edinburgh to Greenock. And then we have the Christmas one at the end of the year, of course. So, stick with us, folks. Hopefully you're finding these podcasts interesting. If you have any suggestions of topics that you would like us to cover, feel free to drop us a message on social media, send us an email, contact@scottish-roads-archive.uk. Always happy to hear from you. But on that note then, John, I think we'll wrap things up. Duncan, thank you as always for your well-researched facts and figures. Duncan. And we will see you all soon.
See you soon.
See you later. Bye.